Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming on to the show today, Mr. Chase Cooper. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Bryce?
I'm doing quite fine, thank you. Now, the first question, which sometimes gets people a little bit like, what? Do you have a title at this moment that you care to go by, whether it's your name plus some, it's your job, whatever? What do you like to go by, or what would you like to be your official title as of today?
I probably just stick with Chase. I don't really have another title I want to put out there.
Chase is fine. And do you have a title that you wish to have in the future, whether it's Dr.
hmm
Cooper or executive, administer, blah, 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 anything like that?
hmm Definitely professor, if I had to pick one. That's the end
Okay.
goal.
Professor of what?
Um, I mean, professor of astronomy
Okay.
or planetary sciences. I'll do
Okay.
either or.
So, what's the difference between like astronomy and planetary science? Aren't those like both space related? Is that not the same professor?
They are both space related, and the two are conflated a lot from what I've seen. I think in general, like smaller schools, for example, if they have a department for astronomy, they'll put planetary science into that. But if you're going to a place that's more specialized, they'll often separate astronomy and planetary science. With planetary science, you get a lot of the planet specific stuff. Whereas with astronomy, you cover stars, galaxies, like transient events like supernovae and all that. Whereas, yeah, planetary sciences is mostly planets.
So, astronomy is a little more broad in what it covers, and planetary science is a little more specialized to planet such media.
More or less, yeah. Not to diminish either field.
Yeah, different approaches to things. Like we one person's and you have so many facets within astronomy too that you can have
hmm
stellar astrophysics where they only care about stars, and then you got planetary scientists that more or less only care about planets, and you mix it all together and you get the whole education of the human race.
Right.
So, in your process of becoming a professor, what kind of schooling are you going through right now?
Yeah, so right now I'm in like my junior year of the astronomy major at the University of Arizona.
Okay,
So past the halfway mark.
good deal.
Yeah, I mean it's been a lot of physics coursework up
Mm.
until now. I think I've only completed one course that is explicitly astronomy, and the rest so far have been physics. So it's a lot of physics, but we're getting to the fun stuff.
That's good. I've You'll be at this point the third physics and astronomy person, which for those that are listening, it's because I just got out of that degree, so I have a lot of those friends. It's easy to pull them in, be like, hey, come on to my show. We'll talk a bit. So you might get a little bit of repetitiveness here for some of you, but saying that you're a junior and it's mostly physics heavy. For anyone who's curious about doing like astrophysics, at least at the U of A, for example, you'd say it's kind of lopsided maybe, and that you get a lot of physics early on and not so much astronomy, or like you kind of have to do a lot of intro type classes or work your way up to then enter into astronomy in that sense? Or how would you describe your experience in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty fair. I'm trying to think back. My my first semester here was all math and physics. My second and third semester had one astronomy course, and the rest were still math and physics.
Hmm.
The physics classes have a lot of prerequisites themselves, and then a lot of them are also prerequisites for the later astronomy stuff.
Gotcha.
So you don't get to astronomy typically until like your junior, senior year, from what I've seen.
And then it's just astronomy, or are you still taking some
Mm.
physics and stuff? Is it kind of just always there?
It's still very much always there. Uh, Even right now, I still have, I think, two 2 physics classes and 2 astronomy classes. The physics is still very much there. I still think in my final year, I'm still going to be taking a lot of physics classes.
Hmm.
Maybe we'll finally get to the point where it's more astronomy than physics. I think we'll get. I think it becomes
That could
that
happen one
eventually.
day.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So for anyone who's curious about doing astronomy, I like to usually tell people think of it as an astrophysics, even if it says astronomy a lot of times, because it's physics classes more or less, just with stars and planets as the main subject in your story problems. It's kind of similar. Like you have different dynamics and different facets of physics, but if you go in expecting it to be somewhat grueling or derivative based or calculus blah, then you're in the if you think about that, then you're in the right wheelhouse. Here would be like, oh, this makes sense, I'm not surprised by this. If you go in hoping it's going to be, here's the sun and it's yellow, and see, I called it yellow. I'm not doing that here.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
very much. I appreciate that.
That's a fun conversation to have another day. If you're just hoping that it's going to be nice, easy breezy stuff, that you're just kind of like pointing at things and naming them, astrophysics degree, astronomy degree might not be all that fun for you coming up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, half the people that I go to class with are dual astronomy and physics majors. It's so intertwined. It's like an extra 6 classes, I think, to double major.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people do double major, which back when I did my physiology degree, that was like, oh, like anyone that was doing that, you're like, oh my, you just like bow down. You're like, oh, that's the really smart guy right over there. He's really determined to do stuff, whatever. Little do you know that sometimes it's just easy to get the second degree if it's just a couple classes with things that are related like that. You don't necessarily have to do like French and biology, which have nothing to do with each other. Then that's going to be a gigantic workload. Not that the astronomy degree isn't a workload in and of itself.
Yeah.
So you're doing your astronomy work. Are you also doing some kind of research or have a job at all?
I am doing research, and I am doing a job. The job is significantly less interesting, so we
Let's talk with that one. Let's get that out
want
of
to
the
start
way.
with that. Okay. Let's see. I think for the last 2 or 3 years, going on 3 years, I've worked at the university libraries.
Okay.
So that's been, for a time, that was my full student employment. I was doing that 20 to 25 hours a week. And then starting last year, I got to take some time off of that library work because now I get paid to do research. The research is the fun stuff, right?
Yeah. What do you do for your research?
Mhm. So my research is, at the moment, it's focused on Titan. Titan is Saturn's largest moon. And the reason we study it, the reason why it's so special, is that it is the only rocky body in the solar system outside of Earth and Venus to have a significant atmosphere. And actually, Titan's atmosphere is denser than Earth's at the surface. So it's a very interesting place. It's an opportunity to study something that's like a planet that isn't Earth. It gives you a wider
Gotcha.
variety of things to take a closer look at.
Is it a place that I'm going to be visiting anytime soon? You say atmosphere, and some people might say, ooh, I can go over there and breathe and stuff. How likely is that?
It's not going to go well. Not only is it's a bit of a drive, but the atmosphere there is it's completely unbreathable, right? It's like 95% nitrogen, and the rest of it is methane. So, and that's not going to taste good, smell good, or feel very good for your lungs.
my upper tummy hurts.
Yeah.
So you're doing the research. You're doing no job at the moment. You're saying then, like you're just doing full research as your financial support in that sense.
I still work at the library.
Okay,
It's split very nearly half and half for me right now
gotcha.
between the library and research.
And how did you go about finding that research? Was it you just kind of stumbled right into it, talking to someone and be like, hey, was there like a website that you applied to, like job boards are like that? Or how'd you find yours?
So when I first got into research, it was literally me going through the Steward Observatory or the astronomy department's website, going down their list of faculty, finding someone who did something that sounded interesting and emailing them.
Hmm.
That's how I got my very first research thing. Admittedly, that one didn't last very long. I think I was part of that lab for about a month,
Ah,
maybe a little less. Uh, my current research, I did kind of stumble into. A professor that I TA'd for in the U of A department introduced me to a faculty member at the Planetary Sciences department who was doing uh, exoplanet adjacent research. And that's why I was put into contact with him, is because I really want to do exoplanet research. And yeah, I was CC'd on an email. I sent a couple of my own emails to this faculty member, and I've been doing research since.
now I can't help but bring it up because I know things, but NASA funded research, if I understand correctly, which is that normal? Is it anyone who does space research? Is that it's always going to be NASA funded? I know you're more humble in this, but is there a separation at all of like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. This research is a little bit more unique, or not everything gets NASA funded, so it makes it special. Anything you want to add in that regard?
Um, I guess I don't know. Um, my first year of research was actually through the Astrobiology Center on campus.
Okay.
I believe that the seed money was given to them by NASA, but I submitted a grant proposal and they gave that to me. I think I got lucky with the NASA stuff in that I joined a group of people who were starting to think about submitting a proposal, like a more, how do I describe this? Like a more robust proposal to NASA's like research program, and I got in there right before that started. So I feel very lucky to have gotten NASA bucks when I did. But I know they do fund a lot of space research, right? It's not all the big name projects. Uh, they give out grants for.
It's not uncommon to see it.
Right, yes.
Gotcha.
Still sounds cool.
It is cool. I mean, how many people could say that they've got such a big, catchy name that, it's not that necessarily NASA's right there and they have a representative that's with you or backing you up or anything like that, but to have someone on that side to have looked at the paper and go, oh, yeah, sure, here you go, bang. That sounds interesting enough for money, and off you go.
Yeah, it's something.
So we'll come back probably to some of the undergraduate talk in a minute. But so let's say you're planning on just 4 years for your undergrad, right?
Yes.
And then what does graduate school look like for you? Is it just like a, for lack of words, generic grad school application to some kind of astronomy program? If you're wanting to be a professor, are you worried about like schools that have really good education programs, or like what's kind of going through your head on what you're picking for graduate school?
Um, yeah, so I do want to go to grad school. I do want to go to a place with a good program, as good as a program as I can find, because I really do. I
Of an
really do.
astronomy program, you're saying?
Yes, astronomy or planetary sciences. For example, if I were to stay here in Tucson, I would more than likely apply to LPL instead of their astronomy graduate program. LPL is their planetary science program
Gotcha.
or department, I guess. So I very much care about that. I care very much about going to a school that's, good at doing research, has people that I can work with, connections I can make.
Do you know about how long that grad school should take? Like you start day one, you'll become Dr. Cooper after how long?
Um, it does depend on where you go. I think it's typically around 5 years, but
Okay,
it could be anywhere from 4 to some people take like 10 years to finish.
gotcha.
So it really, I guess it just depends on what happens.
Is that, you think, more of a workload thing? Like if some people are trying to balance working on top of doing grad school, or if that's more just trying to get the, I guess, their thesis to fully fledge out?
I can say
That's
I
fine.
haven't done it yet, so
Well, hopefully you'll find out and it'll all be smooth.
that's the goal, right?
So, amidst all of your stuff that you're doing, would you find it generally overwhelming, underwhelming? You see, you're able to take care of the workload well. Is it semester by semester? If someone's considering doing the astronomy department at least the U of A, for is what we can only really speak on in some ways, should someone expect, oh, you're going to be really working at it to get it done, or it's like, no, you can skate by a little bit, you can take breaks, sometimes turn it on, but most of the time you can turn your brain off.
Uh, you might be able to take it easy for the first little bit. Admittedly, I was very much that way, but it is very math and physics intensive. And I found that as time has gone on, the classes don't get easier. Not that they get like monstrously difficult, but
It just keeps
you,
stacking.
yes, and you need to work. I've had to change a lot of how I view studying and schoolwork over the last like year and a half because I was kind of a slacker before then.
Hmm.
And if you want to do that and get good grades, you
They
can't
don't mix well.
really. Yeah, you're right. So it's definitely been an adjustment. It's not, I wouldn't call it overwhelming. It can be at times, but with the right coping strategies, surrounding yourself with a group of people who do many of the same things, it's definitely doable.
So when you say you change like your studying habits or strategies, can you give an example of what you've done? Like is it habits from high school, or where like the original habit come from?
Yeah, well, admittedly, I didn't study in high school.
Hmm.
I I didn't feel like I had to, and I did fine. Uh, and then I guess I'll just drop this in there for my first degree. Uh,
You have 2 degree. You're working on a second degree.
I've already graduated with a bachelor's degree in
Wow.
linguistics.
We'll talk about that, but keep going with
Yeah,
your study strategies.
yeah. Admittedly, I skated through a lot of that too. It just wasn't. I felt like it wasn't as difficult, and it's definitely less quantitative. Don't have to do a whole lot of math when you're studying linguistics.
Hmm.
So coming back to school for astronomy, there's all this math and physics. It's like I had to put an effort beyond class time and homework. Going through textbooks, doing practice problems that aren't like for points, meeting up with people, asking for help, going to office hours. That was a big one. But any resource you have is a good one. So just
So you had
learning
to
to,
add on a lot of extra avenues, I guess, for learning the material.
right.
Well, cool. Without beating the astronomy horse to death too much, we can talk about your unique experience of being, a second degree. And to quickly say it for some people, you are able, anyone, money willing, to get a degree, graduate, and then go back to school. If you find that, whether it was me with my physiology degree, or we'll talk about you and your linguistics, if you get the degree and you're like, oh, I don't want to use this, or this doesn't have what I want in the end, actually, you don't have to go to grad school. You don't have to keep continuing on like med school for me. You don't have to keep going. You can stop there and go back, even if you wish, to do another degree. And so, what was your, I guess, inspiration, for lack of words, if you get done with the linguistics degree? What makes you not use it? What makes you come back to astronomy? Why that seems, anyone might be like, well, that's a huge, like they're not even in the same field. It's like over here and then bam, I'm over here now. So how'd you make that transition, or what inspired you to try that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I went into linguistics because I was fond of learning languages. Not so much because of like the linguistics behind it. There's a difference. I know like people often conflate learning languages and linguistics, which is, and it's part of it. But the part I was really interested was learning languages. So I was just really going through with the degree, kind of to get a degree. And let's see, the 2 spring semesters before I graduated with that linguistics degree, I had the opportunity to be a TA for the university's Intro to Astronomy class. And that was the small domino that ended up knocking over all the big dominoes later on. Um, it was great. I had this opportunity to be like part of a teaching team, which was really nice. I worked with this wonderful professor, Dr. Ed Prather.
Woo!
I know, this guy's awesome.
Big fan.
And he takes teaching really seriously, and he does a really good job at it. And I was really impressed and inspired by that. And then at the same time, it gives you a deeper understanding as someone who's watching him teach, a deeper understanding of like astronomy topics, which I had already been interested in, but I had never really seen as a career path, just more of a like an interest or a hobby. So by the time I was going into graduation, I had no care for my linguistics degree. My heart was not in it. It was in astronomy. I was spending all of my free time like reading up on it and watching videos and all that. Way more than I ever had for anything else. So when I graduated and I got the degree, like the straw that broke the camel's back was like I got the degree and I just didn't care. I still have it. It's sitting on my coffee table over there. I'm not really making
It's
use of
hanging
it.
out.
Yeah. And my original plan was to go back to the U of A for grad school in linguistics or in a related field, really. But I wasn't really excited about that either. So I admittedly can't remember my exact thought process, but I took a week to think about it, and I decided I think I would rather go back to school for something like astronomy, something that I actually love, rather than go into a grad program for something that like it'll give me a job, sure, but
It just wasn't what you wanted.
right. I needed more. So that was frightening starting over, but looking back, I'm so fucking glad I did it. I don't know if I can curse or not.
It's fine, yeah.
As the best, it's probably the best decision I've ever made. I'm a lot happier with what I do. I feel all the more fulfilled all around. So
Good. So speaking on it being terrifying to do the second degree and like to go back into it and have to feel like you're starting over, and in a lot of ways that's not like life is necessarily you go forward and then if you go back a step life's over. But do you have any experiences you want to share as someone? I know some people might, especially much older folks who are say maybe 30, 40, 50 plus, that might want to go back to college, and there's that age discrepancy. I know just you and I going to classes again on our second degrees. Even those couple years can feel like enough of a gap where you're only 23, 27, and everyone else is 20, 19.
Hmm.
And you're like, oh, that's only 4 years. But something about that can be just enough. And have you felt like that gets in the way at all of relationships you can have with colleagues and stuff? Or do you feel like that's not really an issue? What's been your experience?
I want to say no, like it's not really been a problem. It's definitely not been a problem, right? Um, Not only do I, I meet other people who are in a similar boat. I have friends who are my age. I have, we met. You're so much older than I am,
I
and
don't know why you had to put so much in there. It's all like, I just talked about 4 years isn't that far, and oh my god.
but beyond that, no, it's been, I'm friends. I make friends. I make new friends. I talk to people, even though they're like 3 or 4 younger than me. It's really all the same. I can't speak to if you are, older, like if you're in your 30s or 40s or older. But I've had classmates like that, and really, it's really not a barrier. It's more of a fact. It's just like a fun fact rather than anything, right? And you'll probably get some jokes because
You're the grandpa in the group.
yeah, right.
Oh.
But it doesn't. It's nothing.
Do you feel that you have an advantage at all, not necessarily over other people, but if there's, linguistics chase and there's astronomy chase, do you feel like second round you feel a lot better or a lot more equipped to tackle college life because you've kind of done the degree? Um, did you feel maybe even in your junior year of linguistics that you kind of got into your bearings and you're like, oh, okay, I understand how it's going? About when did you feel like, oh yeah, I definitely feel upgraded. Like I know what's going on. I'm not always happy with the content I'm learning, but I know how to tackle it. Like I know what I'm going to
Hmm.
try and do.
Yeah, and I definitely felt that going back to school, uh, having already completed a degree, I was already familiar, not necessarily with like the classes or like anything that's like degree specific, but I already knew a lot about the resources that were available, making use of things like the bookstore, the libraries, having experience doing that. It's been great. Being able to like navigate administration because you will have to do that, and
That's
nobody
always a
wants
treat.
to. Yeah, I know. Uh, but being able to do that, having done it before, is nice reassurance. You know, I I know what classes tend to look like in that I've taken at that point what I had to have taken something like 35, 40 classes in my
Mm.
first degree. So I knew what was going on, even if it wasn't the same subject matter. I don't know if I can give a more explicit description of what that means, but
Same shit, different room.
yeah, pretty much. Like I've seen it all before.
Yeah. So you got all of your coursework, you've got all of your extracurricular stuff. You finally get to turn off the clock, or excuse me, you get to finally turn off your brain. You're off the clock. You don't have to do anything else for anyone else. Do you feel like you get any time, enough time during semester days of you get to have free time to do whatever kind of avenues you want or get to see friends outside of school? Do you feel like you're kind of just locked in doing schoolwork and, when the summer and holiday breaks come around, then I can be happy and out and about in the world? Or are you able to sprinkle some of that in your opinion?
There's definitely still a lot of like schoolwork to do, but I definitely feel like there's been enough time to do other things. I still get to, hang out with friends. Now there's still plenty of time to hang out with friends. That hasn't changed. It might just be a little bit less and like people have to drop here and there just because stuff comes up, re-school and all that. But I definitely still get to do that. I have time to watch TV and relax. Uh, that's still there. I've had to like learn to manage my time a little bit better.
Mm.
Uh, first year Chase was watching a lot of YouTube, and it was really just not a good use of time.
Is eating into other things.
Yeah, pretty much. But so there's that aspect, having to learn, how to manage your time so as to not find yourself in a situation where you can't do things you want to do. Uh, but yeah.
And do you feel as though when you finally get to do your hobbies that it's like a, oh, thank God, finally, I don't have to deal with this school or this class or this teacher? Do you have a generally positive or not outlook on your education? Do you enjoy most facets of it? Like, not everything's perfect, but
Mhm.
do you have a more positive or slightly lesser so to the general experience you've been having now with your astronomy uh, learning?
Oh, definitely a positive experience. It's not to say there aren't those days where I get home and I feel so done. God knows I've talked to your ear off about it several times before. Uh, there is some of that, but not enough to make me regret doing it, right? This is I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy that the new semester's starting. I love to be in school. I love, I love the learning that goes on. I love that I get to do it with people who I consider my friends. It's great.
And in that vein of not really having any regret, I can ask finally the big gotcha question that I say I'm going to say this almost every episode. I feel like just because I can't help it. I don't love these, but a part of me wants to include it, so I'm going to listen to it. You, Chase Cooper, get a redo of whatever size, whether it's tiny, it's large. You get to go back in time to whatever point you want, not before high school, and you only get to remember one thing from all. You learn so many things. Obviously, you change a million things if you went back, but you get one big change, one small change of your choice. What are you remembering? You're like, oh, I probably would have. Yes, you would have probably not done a linguistics degree, or I wouldn't have done the University of Arizona, or I would have actually double degreed, or I would have whatever. Is there anything that stands out in your head that you would have done earlier or done instead, if anything?
In that vein, like of school choices.
Yeah, school choices are in the for the hopes of getting the career that you would want today.
Mhm. I mean, yeah, skip the linguistics degree, go straight to astronomy.
Ignoring that now.
Ignore. Okay.
If it's just your astro stuff, is there anything that you would have done better? Like, oh, I did my practice run with the linguistics. Cool, whatever. I can't fix that. Made me who I am now for astronomy. But there's something I would have changed for going into that program or being in that program. Is there anything you'd change in that regard? You can take a minute.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. Can I have you read the question to me again?
So you get one redo.
Mm-hmm.
It's either tiny, like, oh, I would just go back and make sure I have my shoes by the door every time I go out because I'm always late to class. Or it's something huge, like I would have actually gotten more classes in astrobiology because I care more about that type of schoolwork and maybe professing in that. Astronomy related, would you change anything if you're able to go back in time and remember, oh, I got to do this one thing to change, and then everything else is just consequences of that?
Um, I have a not interesting one in that I would take chemistry.
Any answer is
There's just
valid, but why would you take chemistry? Do you mean like a full blown degree or just like more classes?
more chemistry classes, just because in the vein of astrobiology, there, which is super interesting. There's a lot of there's a whole other realm that I'm not familiar with that has to do with chemistry, and it can be like atmospheric chemistry, or it can be solar system chemistry. Yeah, chemistry plays into like atmospheric sciences. It plays into how planets form, plays into how stars form. It is useful for astrobiology and considering like what kind of life could be out there. it's this whole avenue of thinking that would be super helpful for my career path and super interesting as well. That I just don't have time to do now because chemistry classes, you have to take them in order, and there are like 4 semesters of chemistry you need to take to really get to the big boy stuff.
Mm. Cool. So you get your spotlight chance right now. Just in case you need it, is there anything you want to say to our 14 or 4 million listeners that I haven't asked you that you're like, man, I wish you would have asked me, or I want to be sure I tell people this, or it can be inspired or not. Here's your 30 seconds. Is there anything that you want to say or add? And your answer can be no, but I just want to give you the chance to add a little special flair of Chase Cooper sauce if you wish.
God. Change your major, man. Don't be afraid to change your major.
That's something.
Yeah.
If you're not always sure, take a class in something and see if that's more for you. I mean, for you, it's literally just an astro gen ed. You didn't have to take something very advanced to get you inspired. It can be pretty low level stuff of a different topic, and it can change your life.
Totally. And money willing, like take your time. Right? I've been here for 6 years now. I
you ain't going away anytime soon.
Yeah. So, but if you figure out what you want to do, that's more important than an extra semester or 2, I think.
Yeah, you'll make up for it in the long run for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool deal. Thank you very much for coming on to today's show, Chase. It's been very nice talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. It's been a blast. Thanks for having me.
And thank you to our listeners and such. We'll speak to you soon, I'd imagine. Have a good time. Bye-bye, everybody.